Well, joining us now, President Trump's personal attorney, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, and federal prosecutor. Rudy, good to have you back with us. Let's talk about just for a moment an update on Dominion and how important do you believe the concerns that are being expressed in a number of states about the ability of these machines not to be hacked?
Well, first of all, the machines can be hacked. There's no question about that. Their machines can be hacked, but it's far worse than that, Lou. Dominion is a company that's owned by another company called Smartmatic through an intermediary company named Indra. Smartmatic is a company that was formed way back in about 2004, 2003, 2004. You're going to be astonished when I tell you how it was formed. It was formed really by three Venezuelans who were very close to the dictator Chavez of Venezuela, and it was formed in order to fix elections. That's the company that owns Dominion. Dominion is a Canadian company, but all of its software is Smartmatic software. So the votes actually go to Barcelona, Spain. So we're using a foreign company that is owned by Venezuelans who are close to Chavez, are now close to Maduro, have a history. They were founded as a company to fix elections. They have a terrible record, and they are extremely hackable. So, I mean, Texas made the right decision. What the heck was Georgia doing hiring this company? I'll tell you what they were doing. The lobbyist for Dominion was the former chief of staff for the governor. Why are we using a foreign company with connections to Venezuela? I'll give you another connection. Smartmatic, the company that owns Dominion, well, the guy who was running it was one of the people who was number 2 or 3 in Soros's Change the World organization. Open Society, right? We got a very funny company here. We got a really strange company. Very frightening. And yes, they can be hacked, and yes, they can change votes.
And now we have to find out whether they did. And with those servers, whether they're in Canada, whether they're in Barcelona or Spain or Germany, we know a number of companies. All of them are private. 5 of the top voting companies in this country, at least if they're not in this country, they're processing our votes in this country. They comprise 90% of all of the election voting market in this country. It's stunning, and they're private firms, and very little is known about their ownership beyond what you're saying about Dominion. It's very difficult to get a handle on just who owns what and how they're being operated. And by the way, the states, as you well know now, they have no ability to audit meaningfully the votes that are cast because the servers are somewhere else and are considered proprietary, and they won't touch them. It won't permit them being touched. So it's really so. How do you proceed now?
Well, I mean, I'm working on the part of the case which is demonstrating how many illegal votes were cast, and I'm way beyond the margin that I need in Pennsylvania or Michigan to overturn the vote there. We're up to about 623,000 unlawful ballots in Pennsylvania and about 320 unlawful ballots in Michigan. And in Michigan, of course, we have a couple of extraordinary witnesses, one of whom was a Democrat who worked for 30 years for the city of Detroit, who will explain that she started getting trained in how to cheat in September of 2020. They'll also testify to 100,000 ballots being shipped in about 4 in the morning after they had stopped counting. And they got into a panic because they thought they had made up the lead and Trump was still ahead by 120,000 votes. So they brought these ballots in cars that had and trucks that had out-of-state license plates. They piled them on the tables, and from the witnesses that were there, from whom we have affidavits, every single vote was for Biden, and the ballots looked totally fraudulent. Only one person voted for, rest of the ballot empty. Nobody bothered to look or check whether or not the envelope was valid. They just threw it away immediately. There was no Republican observer, as the law of Michigan requires, and it's a misdemeanor not to do it. So I can't see these 100,000 votes standing, plus about 140,000 more that were counted deliberately out of the sight of any Republican who could check the validity of the ballot. And I think that number will go up. When we began in Pennsylvania, we only had like about 130. We're now at 632,000. This was a stolen election, Lou. I know the phony elites don't want to hear it, but this was a stolen election. The same pattern exists in Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin.
And I think Rudy, the fact of the matter is this looks to me like it may be, and I say maybe, I'm not suggesting it is.
Sure.
But following the operation as when President Trump was a candidate to block his presidency, to follow with the special counsel. First, 11 months of investigation, then the special counsel investigation, which went nowhere except to exonerate him, and then the phony impeachment process. This looks to me like it is the end of what has been a 4.5, the end game to a 4.5 year long effort to overthrow the President of the United States. It looks like it's exactly that. That there is these are all parts of a piece here.
Well, it's impossible that in 10 different crooked Democratic cities, on the morning of the election, every single one of those Democratic leaders woke up and said, we're going to block the Republicans from seeing any of the mail ballots. Since whenever we count absentee ballots, we know that we have to have a Republican and a Democratic representative. The only reason they did that is because they knew they were going to need that room to make up for his margins. And here's where they got screwed up. The margins were much bigger than they anticipated. They were figuring they had to make up a couple 100,000 votes in Pennsylvania, maybe 100,000 in Michigan, maybe 80 or 90,000 in Wisconsin. Now they're looking at numbers like 800,000, 300,000, 400,000. They had to do plenty of cheating in the middle of the night in order to catch up. And that's why they kept the Republicans out. No reason not to let the Republicans look at these ballots if they're legitimate. Why do you want this issue? And if you know the history of absentee balloting, we never exclude the other side when we look at absentee ballots. Never, ever. This is the first time that ever happened.
Well, no one would. Yeah, it's extraordinary that this election has got more first than any I can think of. And Rudy, we're glad you're on the case and pursuing what is the truth.